Hello, everyone. I thought before I sleep share an episode. There are certain interesting ideas at work in the space of my awareness right now that I feel like talking about it. I want to take the listener's attention to a moment where this was years ago. I'm feeling like maybe 7 years ago or something. I was living with my parents at the time, and I go into the porch. And I had this habit of waking up early in the mornings, making a cup of coffee, and then going on the porch. And there was this table, and I would sit there with a notebook and a pen. Sorry, yeah, exactly, with a notebook and a pen. I remember one morning, like one morning that I had woken up with, like, just that whole setup. I was sitting on the porch, I was looking at the yard, and in front of me, there was like a space, like maybe a meter and a half of the porch still. And so, as I'm looking at this, for a moment, my mind fathoms the worst version of me and the best version of me. It's like my mind became curious enough to fathom, all right, what is the worst self and what's the most advanced self, right? And I remember my mind managed to create two versions of me, one like total chaos, one total order. And I saw those two archetypes and versions of myself, and they were looking at each other, and suddenly both of them turn around and they look at me. So that was a moment where my mind had reached the ability to not be convinced that I'm a specific type of self, but rather it was like there are potentials and probabilities when the future is concerned. So there is a matter at hand. What are you? And then what can you be? So the idea of potential comes in. So when a person, for example, let's say in any environment they're in any world they're in, let's say they become bored. So they would have to either go access a new world or they have to reconstitute that old world. So either I live in the system with the system's values, I live outside the system, or I live in the system as if I'm outside the system. In this episode, could your most advanced self be realized? Could you be your most advanced self? Even could you be your most advanced self right now? So these are, it's like there's three levels to this episode that if I answer these, the episode is complete and then I just surf my inner realms. Could your most advanced self be realized? So you see, think of it this way. This is a very strange way of talking about it, but this is a different way of, I guess, talking about it. Imagine that you are just like you have two eyes that see the same moment, right? So it's like two different dimensions, but they are each part of the moment. I want you to think like in the ancients had this mentality that there is a life that is associated to my body. So it's like I'm this being right now, and this being has aspects to it. There is a physical aspect to the moment, right? So it's like the body's life, and then there is the mind's life, and even metaphysically, there's like the soul's life. But the soul's life is inseparable from the divine will's life, right? Like that's the. So imagine you can't right now, like there isn't any, like technology's not that advanced for us to like literally get in like a vehicle and travel to another parallel reality of Earth, but your mind is kind of a parallel reality of Earth. So this idea that you're living in one world as one self, but this self is living like three lives in one as one being. Okay, I'm trying to design a context here to explain what I want. Okay, about this idea. So I'm pretty much saying the question is, could your most advanced self be realized? So before that, we're like, okay, before we can even fathom what the most advanced human would look like, we need to first look at the human and see what types of experiential accesses the human have and what sort of existential access we have. So if you were to look at like a day, and a day has 24 hours, you are 24 hours throughout a day physically existing. But if somebody was going to say, what about your psychological presence? The mind, because we sleep and go into deep sleep, the ego's like goes into vanish mode. Do you understand what I'm saying? So so our psychological life is shorter throughout the day than our existential life because our existence is experiencing the world 24/7, but human consciousness is experiencing reality in accordance to poetically when the mind wakes up in the morning. So what I'm trying to say is that we can't just say it's a human being. There are dimensions to how this human being is in some sense experiencing life and existing, right? So anyways, I'm just this person, kind of I had it was a good day today, but I'm a little, I don't want to say I'm exhausted, but like today's been a very dynamic day. I guess here, I'm just going to go at my own pace, guys. I can't be, you know, Mr. Within, at this moment. I'm just gonna go with the flow. Okay, so the flow is taking me to this notion that, all right, let's say that somebody, like I'm a designer, I'm sitting at this table, and on this designer's table, somebody faces this problem. They're like, yo, if we were to try to understand how to create the most advanced human being, we don't have the technology, right? Could your most advanced self be realized? So we need to look at the self. What is the most advanced self? So a simple self is a self, let's say, responsible for one dimension. So like basically the simplest type of self is a self that sees only itself. Do you understand? So that means I'm not saying like being like one of those divine folks who's like, yo man, I see, myself in everything, I'm not trying to take it there. I'm just trying to say that if we were to fathom the most greatest self, we would have to also be capable of fathoming the least greatest self. So if greatness was an ideal beyond chaos and order, there is like the chaos, there could be great chaos and we just do the opposite of it, we discover the great order. Or there could be great order and we notice the opposite and there could be potentials of chaos, right? When I say that you're living multiple lives in one life, just like you have two eyes that see one view, right? We're not designed like chameleons where our left eye is like seeing a world and our right eye is seeing a world. Like a chameleon is being like two different entities technically. You know, this idea, literally, it's kind of like context shifting, but it's also context expansion. So a basic human being's like, all right, I was born. Okay, I was born. It means human beings are born out of a process of life. So two souls, unite their bodies to create one. That's kind of like how the biological program is surviving on Earth. We're being born as human beings. Now, for me, when I wonder about the most advanced self, if I think about what is the most advanced, so I'm trying to answer this thing. Let's say the most advanced self is another way of saying the most advanced life. So could your most advanced life be realized? Imagine. Because if the most advanced self lives, that's an advanced life, right? So could your most advanced life happen in wondering about like the self that's taking this, living this advancement? Our attention goes to this view that, like, okay, so the self is not just the self is like three dimensions of reality. One dimension is physical, a physical game, and the game has consequences, reward and punishment and all this. So there's a physical game to life. That means if we were to wonder about the calculations of a being on itself, its calculations would be like, okay, where are the flags of conscious, let's say symbolically represented reality planted? So right now, I have a biological existential life. So my physical life is my health. That's a life of its own. Then I think about my mind's life. Okay, the mind's life is very different because the mind has an ability to, through the awareness the brain provides, it's like the brain is like the wick of the candle. The body is the wax of the candle. Consciousness is how the brain has been lit. There has been a spark of some genius evolutionary shift or something, right? At some point. That's why when we look at nature, we're like, yo, we're so ahead. Like, why is everybody so behind, right? So the body's life, health, and you could say even trying to build advanced technology is healthy. Because honestly, a person's health is not just based on their environment. Because we're conscious human beings, the free will is deciding its involvement with its realm. So the body's life, physical video game I gotta play. The mind's life is kind of like, what does it all mean, right? And because my actual name is Amin, I've been thinking about the notion of meaning like a lot, right? And so sometimes when I think a verb can be used, this, he's a meaning right now. There is a meaning, right? My mind's life, the most advanced state it has sought, like if somebody was like, all right, you're a human being, you have a mind, from the beginning of your life till now, what is the most advanced view your mind has found? I would say something in the lines of, in the effort to try to understand the workings of the world my eyes opened in, I have come to realize that there are dimensions to the moment. These dimensions do not go against faith because they're all factors of a singularity. So think of it this way, that the mind is living ahead of the body to the degree that it is recreating the moment into what it wants. But what it wants is what it doesn't know, so it doesn't know what it wants. In pretty much, I think that advancement, there is a component to it where you have to acknowledge the authority in the room of manifestation. But then there's a component of it that what is your role? What can you do? What can you be? Or what are you that you haven't realized yet? Imagine right now, whoever you are listening, like there had to probably be one, like in out of all the instruments in the world, one instrument you could play well naturally, right? The idea is that we need three solutions, and the intersection, the unification of these three solutions is the solution. So we're a human being wondering about the most advanced self. We have to start from how we're defining the self. The self is human form. It has a ability through consciousness and the mind to be a psychological projection of itself. So right now, you don't just feel like you are your physical body. You know why? Because you have memories, because you can visualize, because you can close your eyes and still see. That means it's like, what's up with that? Light isn't entering my eyes, but I could close my eyes and imagine like how yesterday looked like. So what's up with that? Think of it this way. The value of the self is limited to the boundaries of the world of that self. So if I'm saying I'm a physical self, it's because I'm in a physical world. Now, if I want to claim that I'm a non-physical self, let's say I'm like, yo, guys, an objective being is talking to you right now. But if I was to say, wait a minute, is it just an objective being? Like, am I just an object making noise in the cosmos? Or is there an organizational pattern that could have levels to it in behavior? So the most advanced self is kind of like the challenge of trying to find the most advanced world, and based on the most advanced world, there can be the realization of the most advanced self. So if right now, let's say you were an individual and you became the most advanced self, right? You would still see, you can't know how, if you're truly an advanced self, because you're not in an advanced civilization. So just by pulling the string of ambition, one begins to see that ambitions are becoming global. That means if the heroes of legend were national, like, yo, in this part of the land, there used to be like a jacked champion. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a legend of a hero in this part of the world, in this country, in that country. But right now we've reached an era where the legends are becoming universal beings. So a human being is not just defined by Earth. A human being is being defined by its capacity to perceive. So it's like intelligence is no longer just accessing information. It is what you are seeing. Like, why are you accessing information? Right? Imagine if somebody like brought you a package and they're like, yo man, the truth as a package of, let's say somebody brought you a document and they're like, yo man, this is truth, right? And so you would be like, okay, what limitations on worldhood am I accepting? Because the limits of my world are the limits of myself. Ludwig Wittgenstein said the limits of my language are the limits of my world, and this sentence is a deeper extension of that, right? Because it's like, what is limiting the advanced self? So see, there's countermeasures to this. So one approach is like, yo, we're not an advanced self right now. How can we become an advanced self? Another approach is, what if right now we are being the most advanced state of being? Do you understand? I'm saying, what if right now we're the most advanced, but we can't realize it? Like right now, I mean, these yogis, I was like, the yogis were like, guys, get rid of your egos and get enlightened. But then you read these ancient books and the yogi, they're like, this yogi had 7,500, had experienced 7,500 apocalypses inside a reincarnation cycle. And I was like, yo, man, that sounds a little egotistical, you know? But it was like the context was beyond just the human being a physical phenomena, a form. It was a force. We are like the form of a force of a world where our form considers it inside to be even a self. So do you see? It's like somebody's like, "Yo, man, figure it out. How do we be the most advanced self?" Like, and the honest answer is, you gotta work with raw data here. And what raw data means is that right now that you're listening to me, or whoever you are, right? There are versions to you listening to me. It's not just you. I'm not saying you existing in parallel realities. I'm saying there is the idea version of you listening to me right now, which is a character in your specific story, right? When we become universal humans, our vision of reality is massive. That means in the future, a human being knowing a million people is not going to be strange. Because all that the species has is itself. And of course, the divine. For me, I'm pretty much like 8 billion organisms on on landscape. Our eyes have opened in a world that was happening way before we were born. This world is like, it's like being in an antique that's constantly being updated. It's like living a life is like an antique update, you know? It's like an analog digital transcendence, you know? So there is something very interesting that the most advanced self is logically would be the most advanced state of being. The most advanced state of being is it individualism? Because if individualism is the most advanced state of being, then our separation with manifestation is being the value of our attention, right? I heard someone say a statement recently to somebody else, and I was in the car, and this person said, "You have confused the idea of power with disagreement." And my mind was blown when I heard this, right? Because it was such an insightful sentence, as if the person has thought disagreeing means power, or someone might think agreeing means power. But power is something that doesn't come out of desire, it comes out of necessity. Okay? So when I say you need to work with raw data, I'm pretty much saying it's kind of like whatever ambition or vision you have of being a sort of self, you have to kind of be like, and guys, I gotta check the battery of my phone. I think I got 10%. I gotta connect this to some sort of higher electrical power. Hold on, guys. There we go. It's all about like this. And it's like a human being is born. They're like, hey man, you're existing in space as matter. And as you change as matter, you experience time. And time goes forth. It was later on that I realized the ancient Greeks even had different parallel views on time. Plato's even famous for saying time is the moving image of eternity. But anyways, there's the idea of time given to the human being. So the human then the human being's like, what is time? And the person's like, let me tell you, kid, time is the past, present, future. And right now you're experiencing a present, and yesterday was your past, and tomorrow you're gonna experience a future. And you have the option of waking up every day and feeling like a new self. And that's what we're given, like soldiers in a war. They're like, yo, this is what we're going to equip you with an idea that your world is compartmentalized, with an aspects of it never being able to return, aspects of it accessible, access of it that could be accessible or may become inaccessible. So you have to be like, I'm a human being, I'm existing in a world. There is time because there's forces changing, so I'm existing in a changing world. So when it comes to the past is past. The past has become geometrical data for an advanced mind processing endeavor. So it's pretty much we're like, yo, could we have the most advanced engine? And it's like, without trying to explain what that mechanical system is doing, or what sort of function it holds, or what sort of utility it can have. I'm pretty much like some guy who was fascinated by design. I looked at the design of existence and I noticed like it's a combination of old world architecture that has created a culture, that it's like a culture is our connection to different human beings in different eras of time. But we don't have pure cultures at the moment because right now the whole species, humanity, the nation of humanity is not acknowledging that we're all citizens of the planet. Your most advanced self would start from your simplest state. So the simplest view would be that I'm just existing here and I don't know anything else. The next view after that is, wait a minute, I'm existing here as a self. Then the next thing is, okay, I'm being a self because this self is considering a separation from the world. Okay, so first there was just something being here. Now there is a self inside a world occurring, right? So then the question comes, how can this self become the most advanced self? So it has to at least try to envision the most advanced world. So it's as if the body's job is to do the most advanced action, the mind's job is to access the most advanced vision. Poetically, the soul's job is to administer the totality of it. If somebody says to me right now, Mr. Within, what sort of relationships do you have with your own existence? I would say I honor my physical existence. There's been times I've thanked my body. I've honored the presence. I've literally, before I went to bed, I went inside my bed and I just saluted, literally like fingers on the, on your head, kind of like I saluted every cell of my existence, every atom of my being. Why? Because they are serving my will. You see, I don't have an army right now, but because I'm being like this entity that's like an army of cells, every like organism, right? So it's like at least my manifestation, my biological manifestation, is in the domain of my own conduct. If somebody says who I am, I'll be like, I'm just this person, existence existing in front of you. Somebody says, like, see, when the dimension of time comes, we are a character in a story. When there is no time, we are an existential snapshot, okay? Of a dynamic of a film. We're like a frame of a film, existentially, if we were to measure it, right? What is measurement? Like, we got tired of measuring till the end of time. We're like, conclude. and we are like, yo, this is what the value is. Pretty much it's like unknown beings in an unknown world. The unknown being freaked out and was like, yo, I can't handle all this meaningless manifestation, or this not meaningless, this like manifestation that I cannot comprehend its meaning. So I'm going to become a character in a story, and because consciousness has started from my face, I'm an organism. So it's as if every person right now listening to me, this is kind of like a strange cyberspace privilege where you're accessing, you can hear another human mind, right? But what I'm trying to say is, the more you look at what you are, the more possibilities and probabilities of activity there are. The advancement is based on that. So advancement is pretty much like what can happen that isn't happening, that if it happened, the moment would be more advanced. Pretty much, I'm not saying we're here to worship efficiency. I'm just saying there needs to be purpose. I think it was Nietzsche. He said, whoever has a why can bear any how. So why are there 8 billion organisms that are designed to communicate and work together and build stuff? Why are they not building the most advanced thing? I think honestly, it's not like you can access your most, I don't want to say anything about it honestly. Like, I don't know, maybe you're like already being your most advanced self right now. Because I'm a man of religion, I'm Muslim, the view I have is that I am not the most advanced being, but I am in the presence of the most advanced. And because the human was designed by the most advanced, the human being has the potential to be the most advanced. So religion is actually one of the domains of perception where this idea is. See, I've pretty much created the bridge between all ideological dimensions of mankind, and I'm pretty much that guy in history that's shouting at all ideas on the planet, and I'm like, an advanced civilization is the future's birthright. It's the destiny. Everything will update because we are updating. So rather than trying to be like, I'm not saying forget the past, but the past is past. I'm not saying don't just be in the present and experience life momentarily, because that might be something you need, right? Like, it's not, it's like somebody says, yo man, is there medicine? Yeah, medicine, somebody needs it, somebody doesn't. Do you understand? So it's as if, like, when it comes to the most advanced condition of your own attention into being what sort of being, my suggestion to you, if you're someone who truly wants to be an advanced being, really meditate on the idea of advanced responsibility, because there is an outcome based on the information of your own world, which is called perception, your perception. And then there is the information beyond your perception, which is all the perspectives there are. Technically, there is 8 billion human perspectives, so the perception of humanity is the combination of the efforts of all that wears the banner of mankind. That means if you were an object and they're like, yo, where was this object manufactured? You are a evolutionarily manufactured entity, right? But this entity is like an antenna. And to me, I've been onto this idea because of how ideas enter my space of attention. And believe it or not, I don't know how, I think I was like this, but like, every day I wake up, it's like it's like I'm inside a film. Okay, but I'm the actor and director of it. I'm the director of life. When I feel I have free will, I can navigate, pilot in the realm. When I am not a form bound entity. I am not, like, see, right now you are thinking I'm a noun, but I've realized everything is a verb because there is speed. That means it's like, if Hussein Bolt, before he broke the world record, was like, yo, I can be faster than anybody. I want you to imagine a species being like, I can be more advanced than any species. So I'm pretty much that human being being like, yo, you feel honorless, you hate the cruelty and savageness of an updating world. Well, let me tell you, you have to take a position. You have to literally be like, okay, There's 8 billion of us. The least I can do is attempt to care, to be the most advanced being in my inner realms universal sector. So in your so you have to be the most advanced being to yourself. And because, how do I say it? Advancement is not doing something specific and thinking you're advanced. Advancement is an individual part of a moving collective system has realized that it has a relationship, right? Just like people have relationships with each other, similarly, you have a relationship with the collectivity of your species. That means if your blood is red, if you have a white skeleton, do you know what I'm saying? Right? If you can, if you are a named organism, if you have consciousness that you're separate, you are advanced enough to experience, how can I tell you? Your advancement is based on your vision. Your vision is based on what sort of world you've accepted based on what you've seen so far. So could you be your most advanced self is like saying, could you access the most advanced vision of your own being? So the question could be, are you being the most advanced vision of your being by just being in the presence of the most advanced vision of being? That means if somebody says Mr.Within, or they say like, yo man, what's your view on the most advanced mindset? The most advanced mindset is not that I'm most advanced. It's like right now, people, why aren't people trying to be human? Right? Because we are human. So when you are advanced, there is no concept of advancement, but it's evident. So at least we can know this psychologically, that the most advanced state is not a state where your inner realms is just justifying it. You see, you have a responsibility to not just like yourself, others, your nation, your planet. You have a responsibility to consciousness. Why is your attention present? What is it that you can see about civilization that only you can advance because that's what your brain antenna has picked up? Right? So my strategy was like, yo man, I can't know my advanced self until there's an advanced world. I can't build there can't be an advanced world unless everybody's an advanced self. So the advancement of the self is the key to the advancement of the world. But what is the advancement of the self? To have the inner vision of the world be way more advanced. So your mind should be living in an advanced state of being. So behind your eyes, you should be living in an advanced civilization as an advanced being. In front of your eyes, you could be like a simple person, a minimalist. In my outer realms, certain dimensions, based on how much my attention is there, I'm automatically a minimalist. Right? That means if somebody's like, yo, let's go play golf, I'll be like, I don't play that ever. So, all right, I'm a minimalist. I don't care. Whatever. Give me a club. You know what do you see what I'm saying? So that's the idea. For me, the advancement of civilization is what I am extracting honor from. People could be like, you're selfish, but I'll be like, no, it's just the fact I'm born in the human species. What is the greatness of the human species? The greatness of the human species is the greatness of humans. What is the greatness of a human? To utilize its being in the greatest way. How do you utilize your greatest being? By having the greatest expectation in all domains of your perception, in all realms of your attention's endeavor. You must seek advancement. This doesn't mean like a savage you need to seek advancement. It means you have to, an advanced person is someone who has attained, let's say for the sake of humanizing it, has attained mastery. So it means if somebody has done something for like endless hours, after some point they just have control. Why? Because there isn't fear to give him lack of control. because there's familiarity. So there's somebody who's, let's say, talented, they do something once and they get it right. And then there's someone who's done something 1,000 times. One day they were talented, one day they weren't, one day they were great, one day they weren't, right? And so after all the ways you have watched, after you have experienced variations of an activity, right? Then you become fearless in that activity, just like somebody who's practiced parkour, right? If somebody is like excellent at parkour, the fear has been replaced with ability. Because you can do something easily, it doesn't bother you. Your attention can conquer another territory of a category of topic of realm. One thing I realized is that I was telling this to my twin brother, and I was like, I'm against people worship. And he was like, what do you mean? Why? Does that mean you don't care about yourself? I was like, no, but I don't worship myself anymore. I like graduated from that phase, you know. So I graduated actually from Toronto Film School, just like every country has its own film school, every part of the world. And I can tell you that there was a point in the middle of that journey where I was losing ambition, like losing inspiration. And I remember I was hanging out with these people, and there was this guy who said a sentence that kind of inspired me to like pretty much finish and just like achieve, right? And what he said was that I'm so happy I'm done with that shit. When he said that, there was like a part of me laughed because it was true, that certain things that bother us now are phases of our life. But the idea of advancing the future, that means you have to ask yourself, what is the most advanced vision that your mind poetically can generate? That means right now you're an entity, you're a being. Could it be that if your attention had a different organizational system, you would be an exceptional being? Right? So on some level, you have to kind of street smart yourself into the mindset that's not like I know everything, so this is what I want, but in the mindsets that's like, okay, what do I have right now to work with? So for me, I was like, what would be, for example, an advanced thing that a human being can do to build cyberspace? Do you understand? So I go live a physical life every day as one person, an organism moving, but then I ask what remains out of that day. It's kind of like who was it? I think it was Joe Rogan. He was like he had become fascinated by this quote by someone who had said most men live lives of quiet desperation. I think Mark Twain said, I don't know who said that quote, but anyways, most men live lives of quiet desperation. It's not most men. Most beings are piloting alone. Now, Mr. Within's like, hey, you're piloting alone, roaming civilization meaninglessly. What if, imagine the greatest designers and engineers and visionaries on the planet gathered around because some dude started talking about the advancement of civilization, and they started building the blueprints to the most advanced. That means imagine the leaders of the nation were like, what are we doing wasting time fighting each other? Let's all sit down and even ask ChatGPT 4 or something, or or ChatGPT 25 in the future, imagine, right? And imagine we ask AI like, hey, what is the most efficient? I'm going to even check that right now. I'm going to go to and I'm going to ask it, what is what is the best way that the political leaders of nations can utilize their time together when they communicate, when they attend collective their time together. Let me just keep it like that. um, So I'm asking ChatGPT, what is the best way that the political leaders of nations, of all nations, can spend their time when they meet. Oh my god, it reset it. Yikes. Okay, what is the best way that political leaders of nations so what is the best way that political leaders of different nations can utilize their time together, pretty much? So ChatGPT is giving us an answer. So, the best topics that political leaders of nations should discuss: peace and security, economic cooperation, climate change and environmental issues, global health, human rights and democracy, human rights, technology and innovation, energy cooperation, education and cultural exchange. Here it says counterterrorism efforts, migration and refugee issues, regional issues and cooperation, nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, trade barriers and economic policies, infrastructure development, food security and agriculture. So the pretty much the UN has to be like, yo, all the nations that are at war, we don't have time for those, for like fighting over land. We have a global, crisis of trying to advance the standard of life of every human being. And the idea is, from we want to activate the greatest mind in the healthiest body. Like that should be the strategy. In the dimension of the body, healthiest body. In the dimension of the mind, the healthiest mind would be the mind with the furthest vision, right? The furthest depth of understanding, like what it is or where it is or something like that, right? And then when it comes to the soul, it's like your immortal considerations on your destiny. So the idea is, what is going to continue from my energetic existence right now? That means it's like wondering about the legacy of your service to a species surviving in the void. So you see, the UN has to be like, we gotta pause wars and we gotta figure out there's bigger fish to fry than like war on earth, right? Between nations. The bigger fish is to see what is the most advanced way. Because think of it this way, the leaders of nations are like hotel owners, right? And all the citizens of the nation are like people who are living in that hotel, right? So the person who has the hotel has to be like, yo, how are these people like living in the hotel? Like, do you understand? So the idea of an advanced civilization would be, what is the fastest way and the most efficient way to advance all humans on Earth, to advance technologies that in some sense occupy the human, to advance technology so that the human attention span is not consumed by the mundane. Yoga kind of talks about realizing the most advanced self. For me, the most advanced self that in this lifetime I realized was the most advanced self that managed to acknowledge, managed to stop worshiping itself, and to honor the administration of the realm. So think of it this way: there's a way my mind thinks the world should be managed, but there's a force beyond me that is managing the world already, right? So human psyche is helping the world is like lower management service. Upper management service is how there is an intelligence prior to even me being born as a living being. It's like life was alive before it had to be born to notice it's alive. Life was alive, but its life was different. It's like at any moment you can notice you are a presence of being, rendered as a moment of being, rendered as a character in a story of being. rendered as an attention of a free will that can navigate its being. Your most advanced self can also be found by what is the most advanced factor of your life that can change. Pretty much it's like you gotta be like, okay, it's not just me anymore, it's not just my family anymore, it's not just my like football team anymore, it's not just my nation anymore, it's not just my planet anymore, it's not just my solar system anymore, it's not just my galaxy anymore, it's not just my cosmos anymore, it's not just my intelligence realm of my mind anymore. It is in some sense reality has sprouted or has bloomed to the degree that the conscious human mind can utilize various frameworks. So it's not like that you're a person right now with a personality. You are actually this spotlight of attention where various archetypes through your own free will can be held. So what I'm trying to say pretty much is that free will, the purpose of free will is to manage the inner model of the realm. So your mind is a filterization of reality in accordance to your capacity. That's pretty much like what every organism is. The advancement comes from the context, right? So like the human being is the concept, the world and what happens is the context. So the human being has to ask itself, do I want my life to unconsciously happen? It's another way of saying, do I want to have an automated will, or do